Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Try to go ahead and try to stay as faithful to the schedule as possible. But let me introduce myself. My name is Henry Jarrett, and I'm the president of the Methodist Federation for Social Action for the North Carolina Conference. And we welcome you today to our, I think about our 7th or 8th edition of the Jack Crum Conference on Prophetic Ministry. Kay, thanks to her kind support, we've been able to put these every year. If you don't know much why we call it the Jack Crum Conference, it's because it's in memory of Jack Crum, who was a Methodist pastor here in North Carolina, who dared to speak out against segregation for the poor and basically follow the gospel that Christ taught. And consequently, Kay can tell you, they got moved around a lot. But one of the things he did was invest in a endowment that's called the Jack Crum Endowment for Prophetic Ministry that is awarded each year at annual conference. And also, Kay has been a kind sponsor of these conferences. We've done everything from school diversity to Amendment 1 to last year where we talked about loving thy neighbor, which was about LGBTQ inclusion. So we've, I think, just about covered every subject in the social principles. But we thank her for her kind sponsorship and also for being here today. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. This is a wonderful turnout. I would be remiss in not recognizing our partners in this. First, recognize Black Methodist for Church Renewal. Chris Brady, or can you raise your hand? Thank you very much for y'all's sponsorship. The NC Conference Board of Church Society, Nancy Bill Cottingham. That's the Conference Board of Church Society that's given. Also the North Carolina Council of Churches also has been a sponsor. And also, it's not listed here, but I'm going to also mention the movement to end racism and Islamophobia, Mansour Chima.
Thank you.
He's also the social media guru for our organization. He also has a business on the side called Media Diversions. He's very multi-talented. He was also Tar Heel of the Week last year for his work against Islamophobia and racism. So you'll get to hear more from him this afternoon in one of the breakout sessions. And is there anyone who has any announcements for the good of the cause? So since we have the best mass here to hear any announcements. I do want to recognize Joey Lopez in the corner there. He's from Reconciling United Methodist. Reconciling Ministries.
The board of directors for MFSA, the national organization.
Yeah. And Philip Jefferson is also one of our leaders of our reconciling group here in North Carolina, so I don't want to forget mentioning him. And also we have Carol Gehring, who's the corridor district superintendent, who's here right now. And also want to mention our officers, Alan Felton, he's our VP, Nancy Van Antwerp, she's our secretary, Lori Hayes Kaufman is one of our at-large board members, James Kim, who's also one of our at-large board members. You met Sam at the door there. He's our secretary, treasurer, and also membership secretary, sort of, as well. He also does the same thing for reconciling. So, and that's about it for right now. If anyone have anything to announce, if not, I'm going to turn it over to the pastor here, Heather Rodriguez. And also, please give a round of applause for Jude Memorial for hosting this.
Good morning. My name is Heather Rodriguez, and I am the pastor here at Duke Memorial. And I have only, 3-page sermon to share with you right now. Get ready. This is a short prayer, I promise. We are blessed to have this conversation in these walls. Once upon a time, there was a man who sat in a pew in Durham and looked around and said, "Wait a minute, the people that I see look like me." What he meant specifically was white, male, leader of a business. There were women among him in that church. And that man began to think about The workers in his tobacco factory, where do they worship? And benches were pulled out on that tobacco floor in 1886, and Sunday school began, worship began. And out of that birthed a church building that was built in the parking lot of Brightleaf Shopping Center, if you're familiar with that parking lot, that it would eventually become Duke Memorial United Methodist Church. That is, this church's, these walls, that's the mission statement, the vision that was birthed in 1886 by Washington Duke. And I'm not here to say that we are living into that mission statement well. I'm here to say I'm grateful for the ministry that we have done in and through these walls for so many years, and I'm grateful for this conversation. As we continue to ask the question, where are the masses? Our church council has changed our welcome statement this past year to ask that question. And so this, I'm looking at some of our members, this is so important to us. So even as you thank us for this space, we thank you for coming and allowing us to have this conversation here. It's crucial. I just returned from Haiti on Monday, and there's this great Haitian proverb that literally says this: God gives, but he doesn't share. In other words, God gives his children all that they need, right? But God doesn't divvy up the loot. And we saw that lived out in Haiti, of course, in many different ways. My children have a lot of toys. My 12-year-old was with me in Haiti, and we saw children whose beautiful creativity took trash bags and made them into kites. The way that the world has divvied up resources, right, was a theme for our week. But it wasn't just money, it wasn't just education. We also thought a lot about how we divvy up our time, how we divvy up our relationships. And so again, I'm grateful for the opportunity to think about that. It's very easy and comfortable and natural to divvy up our time with those we know best, who typically look like us. And so this church is pushing me to think about who I sit with, who I talk with. And with my friends of different backgrounds, different races, when I say to them, I'm overwhelmed, how do I do this? They begin by saying, sit down and hold my hand and know my name. And today I pray that you sit with someone you maybe haven't known before, that looks like you or doesn't look like you, that you hold their hand in prayer, and that you know their name at the end of today. I want to invite us to open with a word of prayer, a call and response. These words, the words that I invite you to speak back to me this morning. Lord of all, hear our prayer. Lord of all.
Hear our prayer.
So it'll be the whole sentence, actually. Say, Lord of all.
Lord of all.
Hear our prayer.
Hear our prayer.
And so we'll say together that whole sentence. Lord of all, hear our prayer.
Lord of all, hear our prayer.
Join hands together at your tables as we pray. To the Creator of all peoples, who loves each of us for our uniqueness, we ask for an end to discrimination in all its forms. We pray, Lord of all, hear our prayer. That each person may be respected and valued as a child of God, we pray, Lord of all, hear our prayer. That the church may be a witness and a universal sign of unity among all peoples, we pray. Lord of all, hear our prayer. That each of us may acknowledge our part in mistakes and sins of the past pertaining to discrimination and racism, we pray. Lord of all, hear our prayer. For a spirit of forgiveness and reconciliation among peoples who share a history of mutual mistrust, hatred, or aggression, we pray. Lord of all, hear our prayer. For those who have struggled for civil rights, economic justice, and the elimination of discrimination based on race, we pray, Lord of all, hear our prayer. That we may work together to influence the attitudes of others by expressly rejecting racial stereotypes, slurs, and be affirming of the cultural contributions of every racial group in our world, we pray, Lord of all, hear our prayer. And that we may make a personal commitment to abolish social structures which inhibit economic, educational, and social advancement of the poor, we pray, Lord of all, hear our prayer. And lastly, O Lord, that we may work for decent working conditions, adequate income, housing, education, and health care. For Lord, you have given us so much. God, you give, but we are the ones called to share. And so we say together, Lord of all, hear our prayer. And all of God's people say, Amen.